Good God, look at that. Where you going, General?
Berlin! I'm gonna personally shoot that paper-hanging son of a bitch!
What if I told you one of the most celebrated war movies of all time nearly never looked the way we know it today? Patton, the Academy Award-winning epic, wasn't just about tanks, battles, and history books. Behind the scenes, it was chaos. Studio fights, rebellious actors, Cold War politics, and even a dog that stole the spotlight shaped its legacy. Some of the biggest names in Hollywood tried to walk away, governments tried to shut it down, and one actor even threw his Oscar back in the Academy's face. From the opening monologue that almost got cut to the Soviets trying to ban the film outright, the story behind Patton is filled with twists that are stranger than fiction. What played out off-screen was just as explosive as the battles shown on it. These are 15 hidden facts about Patton, so buckle up. Because what you thought was a simple war movie is actually a tale of egos, secrets, and shocking gambles that changed film history forever. Number 1. George C. Scott rejected the role. Believe it or not, the man who defined Patton almost turned it down. George C. Scott hated playing real people. He thought biographical roles were traps. Once you nailed it, Hollywood would never let you escape. When the studio offered him Patton, he flat out said no. Producers scrambled. They chased big names: Burt Lancaster, Rod Steiger, even John Wayne. All of them passed. It looked like the movie was doomed before it began. But then Scott picked up Francis Ford Coppola's script. This wasn't just a war film, it was a deep dive into obsession, ego, and madness. Scott saw the chance to play a man who was brilliant and brutal at the same time. He agreed, but only if he could show Patton's flaws as much as his triumphs. That decision changed everything. The role he once refused became his greatest performance, winning him an Oscar he would later throw back in Hollywood's face. And it set the stage for one of the most iconic performances in film history. Number 2. Scott's makeup transformation. George C. Scott didn't naturally resemble Patton, so the crew built him piece by piece. Prosthetics reshaped his jaw. His uniforms were tailored to perfection, and those ivory-handled pistols never left his side. When he stepped on set, even veterans said it felt like the general had returned. That look changed everything. Scott started to move, talk, and glare like Patton himself. The line between actor and character blurred, and suddenly, he wasn't just playing a role, he was the man. Even Patton's own family admitted the likeness was almost too real. The physical transformation gave Scott the confidence to go even deeper, making his performance legendary. Number 3. The slapping scandal. The film shows Patton slapping a soldier once, but the truth was far worse. In Sicily, he struck not one, but 2 men who were suffering from battle fatigue. He called them cowards, and the scandal exploded when the press found out. Some demanded he be removed from command altogether. Eisenhower kept him on, but the damage stuck. The movie toned it down to a single slap, yet even that shocked audiences in 1970. It showed Patton's brilliance and cruelty in one brutal moment, a reminder that heroes can fall as quickly as they rise. The controversy followed him for the rest of his career, cementing him as both admired and feared.
Your nerves. Well, hell, you're just a goddamn coward. Shut up! Don't admit this, yellow bastard. You may get killed, but you're going up to the fighting. Either that or I'm going to stand you up in front of a firing squad.
Number 4. Opening speech almost cut. That thunderous opening, Patton standing before a giant American flag, swearing and rallying his men, almost never made it to the screen. Studio executives wanted it gone, worried the profanity and harsh tone would alienate audiences before the story even began. But director Franklin Schaffner and writer Francis Ford Coppola fought to keep it. George C. Scott delivered the monologue with raw energy, memorizing every word. What the studio feared became one of cinema's most iconic moments, instantly locking viewers in and defining Patton as larger than life. Ironically, the risk they tried to avoid became the very thing that made the film unforgettable.
Americans love a winner and will not tolerate a loser. Americans play to win all the time. I wouldn't give a hoot in hell for a man who lost and laughed. That's why Americans have never lost and will never lose a war.
Number 5. Patton's family objected. Not everyone was impressed by the film's success. Patton's own family was furious, claiming it painted him as reckless and dishonorable. They hated the temper tantrums, despised the slap incident, and argued that the movie ignored his brilliance as a commander. Producer Frank McCarthy stood firm, insisting the contradictions were the truth of Patton. The studio refused to soften the script, and history sided with the film. For most of the world, George C. Scott's performance became the image of Patton, no matter what the family thought. Their protests couldn't erase the fact that the movie had already shaped public memory forever. Number 6. Coppola fired from the script. Before The Godfather made him a legend, Francis Ford Coppola was actually fired from Patton. Studio executives hated his draft, calling it too psychological when all they wanted was a simple war film. Coppola never expected his name to appear on the credits, but producer Frank McCarthy fought for him, and Coppola's words stayed. Ironically, the script went on to win the Oscar, proving the studio dead wrong. What they once called unfilmable became the foundation of one of the greatest war movies ever made. Coppola himself later admitted he was shocked the film worked, since he was already moving on to other projects by the time it premiered. Number 7. Scott refused his Oscar. George C. Scott delivered a performance so powerful it won him the 1971 Academy Award for Best Actor. But instead of celebrating, he shocked Hollywood by refusing to accept it. To him, the Oscars were nothing more than a meat parade, and he wanted no part of it. The Academy still announced his win, but Scott mailed the statue back. It was the first time an actor had ever rejected the industry's top prize, and it turned him into both a rebel and a legend. The man who brought Patton to life walked away from Hollywood's highest honor, making history just as much as the film itself. Pretty wild so far, right? And we're only halfway through. If you think Scott rejecting his Oscar was shocking, stick around, because what's coming next is even crazier. We'll get into how the real Patton's ghost seemed to haunt the set, how the Soviets tried to bury this film, and the surprising twist the director made to the ending that left audiences stunned. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's ahead. Number 8. Scott terrified the crew. George C. Scott didn't just play Patton, he lived him. Between takes, he stayed in character, barking orders and glaring at extras like they were real soldiers. Crew members said standing near him felt like being in the presence of the general himself. Some avoided him altogether, uneasy with how convincing he became. Extras even found themselves saluting without thinking. The intensity made filming stressful, but it also gave the movie its edge. On set, Scott wasn't an actor in costume. He was Patton reborn, and everyone around him felt it. Number 9. Shot in Spain. Most of Patton wasn't filmed in Europe at all. It was shot in Spain. Franco's regime provided cheap labor, soldiers as extras, and even tanks and planes. The deal saved the production millions and gave the movie its epic scale. The crew, however, had to tiptoe around politics to avoid censorship. Even so, Spain's diverse landscapes were so convincing that audiences never questioned them. Viewers swore they were seeing Germany, France, and Sicily, never realizing Spain was the silent star behind the camera. Number 10. Fake tanks. Finding real World War II tanks in 1970 was nearly impossible. The solution? Spain's army rolled out post-war M48 Patton tanks, which the crew repainted to look like German Panzers. To the untrained eye, they worked perfectly. Historians grumbled about the inaccuracy, but audiences didn't care. On screen, the massive tank battles felt real and overwhelming. The spectacle mattered more than precision, and those fake Panzers helped make the movie unforgettable. For many, it was the closest cinema had come to recreating a full-scale battlefield.
Magnificent bastard, I read your book!
Number 11. General Omar Bradley guided Malden. Carl Malden, who played General Omar Bradley, had the rare advantage of learning directly from the man himself. Bradley was alive during filming and served as an advisor, coaching Malden on his speech, posture, and mannerisms. Bradley wanted his portrayal to be accurate, but also strong. He made sure the script didn't make him look weak. Malden found the pressure intimidating, but the result gave the film balance, grounding Scott's fiery Patton with a calm and steady counterpoint. Their chemistry became one of the film's secret weapons.
Brad, the Siegfried line is an empty shell. They've stripped all the equipment and sent it to Eastern Front. It's overgrown and crawling with cows. I could punch through it in 2 days.
Now, there's no use arguing with me. It wasn't my idea.
If you won't let me kill the enemy, why did you pick me to command?
I didn't pick you. Ike picked you. George, you have performed brilliantly. You are loyal, dedicated. You're one of the best field commanders I've got, but you don't know when to shut up. George, you're a pain in the neck.
Number 12. Producer Frank McCarthy's Pentagon ties. Frank McCarthy wasn't just a Hollywood producer. He had served as Assistant Secretary of War. His Pentagon background gave him rare access to authentic records, uniforms, and vehicles that other filmmakers could only dream of. He spent years fighting to get Patton made, believing the general's story needed to be told. His insider knowledge kept the film grounded in military reality while still delivering Hollywood drama. Without McCarthy's persistence, Patton might never have left the drawing board. Number 13. Patton's reincarnation obsession. The real Patton was even stranger than the version on screen. He openly claimed he had lived past lives as a soldier, from a Roman legionary to a warrior in Napoleon's army. To him, war wasn't just history, it was destiny repeating itself. This obsession unnerved his peers, but it also fueled his confidence. Patton believed fate guided his every move, making him fearless on the battlefield. The movie hinted at it, but never showed just how deep his fixation on reincarnation really went. His belief in destiny was both his strength and his curse. Number 14. Scott's health risks. George C. Scott demanded realism no matter the cost. He rode horses in full uniform under the blazing Spanish sun, performed his own stunts, and rarely rested between takes. Off-set, he chain-smoked and drank heavily, pushing his body to the limit. The toll was brutal. At one point, he collapsed from exhaustion, but refused to slow down. By the end of filming, he was drained, but the intensity bled into every frame. Scott left a piece of himself in Patton, and the price he paid only added to the film's authenticity.
Oh my God, that's enough! Come on, you bastards! Take a shot at me right in the nose!
Get back in here, George. We need a corps commander, not a casualty.
Number 15. Box office surprise. When Patton hit theaters, expectations were low. Many believed audiences were tired of World War II movies, and critics thought it might flop. Instead, it became one of the biggest hits of 1970, earning over $60 million in the US alone. Word of mouth spread fast. Viewers were captivated by the mix of spectacle and psychology, seeing Patton as both a hero and a madman. What Hollywood thought was outdated became a cultural phenomenon, reviving the war genre overnight. It proved that audiences wanted complexity, not just action. Number 16. Oscar sweep. At the 1971 Academy Awards, Patton didn't just win, it dominated. The film took home 7 Oscars, including Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Screenplay. George C. Scott's win made headlines, even though he refused the statue. The sweep stunned Hollywood. What started as a risky project had turned into one of the most celebrated war films ever made. Coppola's once dismissed script and Scott's defiant performance were now part of Oscar history. The Academy had crowned a film that broke almost every rule. Number 17. U.S. Army used it for training. The U.S. Army quickly realized Patton wasn't just a movie. It was a teaching tool. Officers studied the film to learn from Patton's brilliance, but also to see the dangers of his ego and temper. It became an unusual mix of inspiration and warning. Some critics argued it glorified aggression, while others praised its honesty. Either way, the fact that a Hollywood movie ended up in military classrooms showed just how powerful and realistic Patton felt. Cinema had crossed into doctrine, and Patton's lessons were now shaping real officers. Number 18. Soviets tried to block it. When Patton hit theaters, the Cold War gave it an extra edge. The Soviets condemned the film, calling it propaganda. Patton himself had been outspoken against the USSR, and the Kremlin wasn't about to let his image spread unchecked. Eastern Bloc nations restricted or banned the movie, but that only made the West more curious. The controversy gave Patton free publicity, turning it into not just a war epic, but a cultural weapon in the battle between East and West. Even decades later, the film is remembered as much for its politics as its artistry. Number 19. The changed ending. Patton's real story ended with a car accident, but the filmmakers made a bold choice. They left it out. Instead, the movie closes with Patton reflecting on the fleeting nature of glory, walking alone with his dog as his words echo like a warning. Some historians criticized the change as soft, but audiences found it haunting. By ending on philosophy instead of tragedy, the film gave Patton a mythic weight, leaving viewers with a chill that outlasted the credits. It turned a man's life into legend.
For over 1,000 years, Roman conquerors returning from the wars enjoyed the honor of a triumph, a tumultuous parade. In the procession, the conqueror rode in a triumphal chariot. A slave stood behind the conqueror, holding a golden crown and whispering in his ear a warning that all glory is fleeting.
Number 20. Patton's dog Willie. For all the movie's battles and controversies, one of its most memorable touches was a dog. Patton's real-life bull terrier, Willie, followed him everywhere, and the filmmakers made sure he appeared on screen. Willie gave audiences a glimpse of Patton's softer side, balancing out his harshness. The little dog stole scenes and hearts, reminding viewers that even the most fearsome generals are still human, and sometimes remembered just as much for their loyalty as their legend. Patton wasn't just a war movie, it was a battlefield of its own. Behind the camera were fights with studios, political battles with governments, and an actor who blurred the line between performance and possession. Every controversy only made the film stronger, turning it into both a Hollywood legend and a cultural flashpoint. More than 50 years later, it's still remembered not only for its tanks and battles, but for its risks, its rebellions, and yes, even a bull terrier named Willie. So tell me, which of these 20 facts shocked you the most? Subscribe and leave your comments below.